Hi, Gems. So, welcome to Be Well and Live. This is your host and your admin, Jacqueline Smith. I decided that I am going to do recordings moving forward because, one, I want to be able to save my recordings for, people that come to the group and that will be coming to the group as it grows. I think it's great information for them to see and have. Although I can do it with a live, I've been having problems with reading comments, but the end goal is to go live so we can interact and you can ask questions, because as the summer comes closer, I would like to do cooking, live cooking, making juices, all that good stuff. But right now, a lot of it may be recorded, especially topics like this. Okay. So I want to get all of that informational stuff out the way. And I hope today you guys are having a great day. I want to talk about high blood pressure. For many of you that has been following me, you know that I am a type 2 diabetic. And with type 2 diabetes, I also have high blood pressure. And that's been my life since the mid 30s. I would say about when I was 34, 35. I am now 51. I'll be 52 in May. And thankfully, all of it has been in control. My pressure, though, has never been crazy. I've never had crazy numbers, but for some reason, because I am a diabetic, and if my numbers are out of whack, it does affect your pressure. And I don't think a lot of people know that, right? Hence is why you hear a lot of people who have diabetes having pressure. Now, I'm not saying everybody has high blood pressure, right? Because they are diabetic. I'm just saying that a lot of case studies show that a lot of people who have type 2 diabetes deal with hypertension, right? And then you have, though, let me put this on I'm going to put my phone up here. Then you have those who just have pressure, and it could be correlated to so many other issues that I'm going to share. And this is my disclaimer. I am not a doctor. I don't have any credentials in administering drugs at all. But I am an example of a person with high blood pressure. And what I'll be sharing with you is things that I've experienced, what it feels like, what it looks like, what causes it, things like that, right? And then later on, I will be posting some facts. And I believe my moderator, Monique, did that earlier today, if you're watching this on Thursday. Okay, so if you're watching this after the fact, she did post some information about it, but we're going to be posting more. So high blood pressure, I found out, like I said, that I had it when I was diagnosed with being a type 2 diabetic, right? A lot of the symptoms that I've experienced were headaches, some migraines, and there is a difference from the headaches and the migraines. I've experienced sluggishness, tiredness, where it feels like you're so drained or you're feeling so sleepy, right? I've actually experienced fainting. The fainting spells I have not had. It's not something I've experienced a lot of. But I remember when I first became aware that I was dealing with high blood pressure, I would feel faintish. I never passed out. Only that incident when my father was going to spank me and I passed out. I'll tell y'all that story. But yeah, you will have some of those symptoms. I'm trying to think of some other symptoms that I've experienced. heart racing, palpitations, right? Those I experience often on when I know that my numbers has been out of whack, like when I was dealing with stress, right? There's another one. When you deal with stress, your pressure is going to rise. And you may get that beep, 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 right? When you are enjoying yourself, right? Y'all know what I mean when I mean enjoying yourself, right? Intimately, you may get that rise, right? And I share that because a lot of people that I've known, you got to remember, I worked in a hospital. A lot of people, and I've heard some stories, right? All I'm going to say is don't take your pressure after being intimate. Of course, it's going to be elevated. Don't take your pressure after being intimate and you was not satisfied. Your pressure will be elevated because you are bad, right? Right? So those are times you shouldn't take your pressure. That was just a little fun, but it's true. Okay. Another time you should not worry, right, about your pressure. And again, I'm not your doctor, but I've experienced this, right? There's a word for it. I think it's called white coat syndrome. And if I didn't say it right, my nursing friends and y'all correct me, right? But every time I go to see the doctor, my blood pressure rises. Every time. It never fails. Every time, right? Especially since I had this injury. Every time I'm going, I'm like, oh my God, what are they going to tell me? Do I have did I break something? Blah, my going on. My husband's like, calm down, right? This is why I thank God for that man, because he keeps me in check. He's like my monitor. Like, calm down, Jackie. Because I could be like, blah, 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 blah. But I could be like, blah, 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 in my head. And he can see it. Like, why are you looking like that? Stop thinking so hard. Stop, And then you got to stop that. So what he has helped me realize is that, listen, which is what I don't understand, why the nurses do that. And I have some nurses who are following me. So if y'all can explain that, please do. But I'm thankful that the nurses that I deal with, right, they understand. But still, they got to do their job. I just don't understand. And this is what I don't understand. This is what I was going to get to. Why do they take your pressure when you first walk in the door? Especially if you walked up 3 flights of stairs. Of course, it's going to be elevated. You're already high blood pressure, right? You already dealing with obesity. So you huffing and puffing because you're trying to do good and walk up the stairs to now just come upstairs for them to take your pressure and tell you, oh my God, your pressure is elevated. Well, duh, right? Of course it's going to be elevated. But I wasn't thinking like that when this used to happen to me. I'd be like, why my numbers are like that? And it just beep, going up, going up. And my husband will come in the room and be like, ma'am, can you just take her pressure after? Right? And I had to get that in my head. So I know this may be a little funny, right? And I'm not telling you not to pay attention to those numbers, but understand why. Understand the whys of why it may be elevated 5 minutes after you walk into the doctor's office, right? So those are some things to consider. Meaning, don't let it get in your head, right? Don't let it get into your head that, you did something wrong or whatever, right? Like, it's so important to understand the balance. So those are times. Don't take your pressure right after activity. Like, I do a lot of walking. Like right now while I'm talking to you, I learned to walk while I'm recording. Sitting down too long is not good. And then my watch will go off and tell me you got to get up. So I just learned to walk and talk, right? So understand that after your workouts, Even after just a stroll through your house, your number's going to be elevated. So the best times to check your pressure is the first thing in the morning, like literally when you get out of the bed. And God knows I'm not good with that, because the first thing I need to do is go see that toilet, right? See that toilet. And then I can relax. I tell you, if you go to that toilet and if you got to release your bowels, this may be TMI for you people who are, like, oh my God, she's doing too much, right? I'm very, very straightforward, right? But I'm going to tell you this. You have to know this. If you take your pressure right after you pass bowels, your pressure is going to rise. If you've never experienced that, try it, right? And I'm talking about people who have, high blood pressure to the point where you really have to pay attention to that, right? Any little extra activity is going to set it off. And my lips are a little dry again. You have to pay attention to that. So you should take your pressure, right when you wake up, because that's when you're at your stillest. And if you don't take it when you wake up, and you, like I said, go to the bathroom, go get water, whatever you do, make sure you sit down and rest yourself for at least 15, 20 minutes. Relax yourself calmly so you can get a good reading, right? And if for some reason your numbers are still out of whack, take your pressure at least 3 times a day, 3 times during that day. Or you can also take your pressure 3 times in a row. That is what one of my nurses told me to do, right? Take it 3 times in a row. And this is for a situation if your numbers have been out of whack, right? If you know your pressure is not in its normal stage. And when I say normal stage, for those who are not, who don't deal with high blood pressure, there is a normal stage number that is looked upon for those who have a high blood pressure. And please correct me if I'm wrong. And I believe it's 140 is the max. 140 over 90. And again, depending on who you speak to, your doctor, whoever, they may say different. But I'm not talking with someone who doesn't have high blood pressure. I'm talking with someone who deals with high blood pressure. There is a number, right, that they give you to say, okay, but the end goal is to be normal, which is a normal reading is 120 over 80, right? Another factor is what you eat, right? We all know that sodium, having salt, right, can definitely cause your numbers to rise suddenly. Also, carbs, right? Carbs can too. Can actually have an effect on your numbers. What you eat, right, can have an effect. So what you drink can have an effect on your pressure, especially alcohol, right? I'm not a drinker, but I do like wine. And as one who has high blood pressure, I have to be careful which wines that I drink, especially because I'm a type 2 diabetic as well, right? I have to be careful of that. And so, I'm sorry, I'm looking for my lip gloss. And I try to stick with red wines because of the sugar intake in it. But again, as a person who deals with high blood pressure, alcohol is something you have to consider because it will affect your numbers as well. Okay. So what do you do when you find out you have escalated numbers? You go to the doctor. That's what you do. First, you have to first find out the whys. And for me, I'm not saying I run to the doctor all the time, but for me, you have to know yourself. You have to know your body. So, for example, if I am celebrating, well, like the holidays that just passed, right? I was home dealing with a knee injury. That's another thing, guys. Let me backtrack. I was dealing with my knee injury as well as arm injury. That pain will elevate your blood pressure. Okay. My blood pressure was escalated for a whole week. And I was scared, which made it worse because I've never had numbers like that. Right. And so understand that when you're in pain, it's going to affect your blood pressure. When you're taking medications, it's going to affect your blood pressure because some medications may react differently to your body if two different medications are combined and all that stuff. You know, again, I'm not a doctor, but what I'm trying to say is, you know, certain medications could have an effect on how your pressure responds or how do you respond to your body, right? But I did experience high blood pressure. I'm talking it was 160. It was literally averaging between 158 to 160, and I've never had those high numbers, right? And my bottom number was averaging 95 to 100. And it's crazy because it wasn't like that the whole entire day, but it was like that at different parts of the day. And the doctor would ask me, are you in pain? And I was like, yeah. Some days I was in more pain than the next. And this is before physical therapy, guys, right? And this is before he gave me pain medicine, right? So that's what made me go to the doctor. I was like, there's something wrong with my arm because I was in so much pain. And when I went to the doctor, my numbers wouldn't come down. And what happens is when your blood pressure don't come down, they have to keep you, so they say, or have to admit you to the hospital. And I'm in Jamaica. I'll go see doctors here, but I ain't going to no hospital here because, you know, I'm just not going to the hospital here. You know? So I'm like, you're going to just have to check my pressure after I see the doctor. I promise you my numbers will go down. And they do go down. And I explain to them what's going on, you know? But I also got to understand that the nurse and the doctor have to do their job. But I also know my body, right? If I know I've been eating right, I haven't been eating anything that's crazy, you know, I have to make that decision for me. And that could be a decision that you may be risking if you're not familiar with your body. So again, take everything I say and consider, but understand this is my body and I actually understand my body, right? I've been doing this for a while. And so one of the things I have here, and the reason why I feel comfortable, because this is what I have, that I find that a lot of people who are diabetics don't have this in their home. And it's a blood pressure machine, right? I have two of these. And I have one in the States. And when I travel with one. You just have to have it, right? And it's not because my numbers are out of whack, right? But this is what I do. I'm always prepared. I'm always thinking about, you know, plan B. So I'm comfortable of knowing, okay, no, I'm going to be okay. But if you don't know, you got to make sure you go to your doctor. Another factor where your numbers may be high is where I've actually failed in the past because I don't like medicine. I don't like what it do to me. I don't like it. And I had to get out of my head and realize this medicine is going to keep you alive for right now till you figure out how to get yourself together. And sometimes I will miss my medicine, forget my medicine, and my numbers will automatically go up, you know? And that's not good. That's dangerous. That's totally dangerous, especially if your diet is not right, if your diet is not right, if your diet is not right, if you're not exercising, right? If you're not moving daily, if you're sick, all of those are factors that can hurt you if you miss your medicine. And a lot of times people miss their medicine. And unfortunately now we live in a expensive time where people can't even afford their medicine, right? And so you got to make sure you find ways to get your medicine. I am speaking from experience because there was a moment when I first became diagnosed. I was like, I'm not taking this medicine. I'm not doing it. My numbers weren't crazy then. Like my blood pressure was never crazy at that moment, but still, I was playing with my life, right? But at the time, I was um, working on my body. I was doing my necessary adjusting with my eatings and my workout, but still, you have to take your medicine, right? And I'm a believer in that now. Do what you got to do now until you can do what you can later, right? And until my numbers are stable 24/7, right? And I actually get down to the weight I need to be, I have to take this medicine. Unfortunately, when you are overweight or obese, right? Wherever you find yourself on a spectrum, you are at risk if you are a high blood pressure patient. And I say if because a lot of people assume when they see a big woman, right? And I'm going to just use me as an example, right? Who's sitting right now in her very early top 200. I believe I'm like 211. Yes, I gained my weight back. There are women that I know personally that are is double my size, right? And don't have high blood pressure. They don't have diabetes. But the point is, they don't have high blood pressure. There's an assumption that a person who's overweight, right, and have obesity formities, because, 400 pounds is a lot of weight, especially to a woman like me who's I'm 5'4.5". And if I was carrying 400 pounds, that's a lot of weight, right? But there's an assumption that those people are have high blood pressure, and it's not true. How? I don't know. Whatever. It just is. And this is why you can't assume all these things about people. And then on the flip side, there are people who are almost half my size, and their high blood pressure medicine is twice the dose than mine. I take lisinopril, right? And I believe my dose is 20 milligrams. All right. There are people I know who are smaller than me, and I'm talking in weight size. And I'm just saying this for a reason, because there's this assumption that because you're skinny or fat, you don't have certain ailments, or you do have certain ailments, and it's not true. You know, so the goal really is to make sure you know what you are, right? If you are if you are if you have high blood pressure, it is your job to make sure you maintain that and get it in control ASAP. Why? Because it affects that strong muscle, which is the heart, right? The clustered migraines and the headaches, they all play a part when your pressure is raised. Stress plays a major part. And stress is the number one in America because we are overworked, right? A lot of us is living a life that we can't afford. So you're stressed out. And a lot of people are struggling in their life because they can't afford the minimum. So stress is a silent killer. Another factor when you talk about silent killer is the fact that You can have high blood pressure and not have any of these symptoms that I just talked about, not one symptom, right? And boom, life could end. My husband watches lots of sports, and so I'm not really into sports or watching TV like that to the point, but I do listen sometimes to, and I hear these stories about these young men dropping while they playing, and my heart is broken because I'm like, they're so young, you know. But then I'm also one who uses wisdom, like death has no age. We assume growing up, right? Because I'm a '70s babies, right? We assumed that only old people was dying, which was crazy because we really believed that only old people died, and you only die when you were old. Well, it's because that's what we saw back then, you know. Um, and unfortunately, that's not true, right? The truth is that young people have been dying just as much as, the elderly. We just don't hear about it. We didn't hear about them up because we didn't have the social media and stuff. So a lot of this stuff, and I'm sharing this because this is something my husband shared because he's been watching sports. And like I said, my husband has some years over me. And he's into sports, news, and all that stuff, right? And he's like, no, this ain't new. This happens when you play sports. And there are things you can't detect because they're not God, right? He didn't say that part, but he's just like things that they can't detect. And I was like, yeah, that's true because everyone assumed the doctor know everything and they don't. So unfortunately, everything I just said here means nothing to a person, right, who found out that they had high blood pressure, didn't have any of these symptoms, because everybody's body is different. So the key to all of this is make sure you get your yearly, make sure you get checked out, right? If you don't have a monitor at home because your numbers and all is always good, make sure you're doing your yearlies, right? But if you are a high blood pressure patient, then you need to have a monitor in your house. They're cheap, right? I always say that when people say, oh, it's expensive, this is expensive, I always say, especially when it comes to my health, I would rather pay top dollar for an instrument like this, and it's not a lot of money, because they come in different sizes. You can get one as cheap as $10, right? And one as expensive as $100, right? The point is, I don't care what level of the spectrum you're on, you need one, right? And my thing is, if you can go, especially during this time, and go out to eat, go out and have drinks, right? Go out to a party, then you can afford this machine for your health. Because life is expensive. Entertainment is expensive. Eating out is expensive, right? So that's the point of view. Go get your physical done because it will tell a story. And the stories that are not told, only God, right, can intervene. But we must not worry about the part that we can't do. We must worry about the part that we can do that we're not doing. Understand that. Worry about the part that you can do that you're not doing, right? Or continue to do better. If you know, you do.